What's going on, everybody? Hope you had a wonderful weekend. My name is Mark Farzy, head of this little program we like to do called the Farzy Show, presented by Steven Singer Jewelers. Hope you guys decided just the most beautiful weekend, phenomenal weekend. And how could you not? With the Phillies dominating the Nationals, just as they should dominate the Nationals. Hey, on Friday, I was being modest. I was thinking to myself, hey, just take 3 or 4. Just take 3 or 4. They took all 4, is what they did. They continued to be red hot. Hey, Pete Rose was at the game. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but Pete Rose was in town over the weekend. Oh, boy, that could not really have gone worse. There's one way specifically it could have gone worse, and I was kind of rooting for it, but I knew it was going to happen, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Eagles have an open practice at Lincoln Financial Field, and it felt like all was right with the world. You have the opportunity in South Philadelphia to do a little double dip, go to the Phillies game, hang out a little bit, and then go over to the Eagles open practice where you could get a ticket for $10 and it would all go to autism research. So that's pretty awesome. Let's start it off with a positive note and talk about those Philadelphia Phillies, because I have some not so positive things to say about the Phillies as an organization today, but I just want to talk about what's going on the baseball field first and foremost, because I don't care that it was the Washington Nationals. I don't care that they're a depleted team. I don't care that they're god-awful. The Phillies did exactly what they should do against a depleted, god-awful team. They destroyed them and set a franchise record for most home runs in a series. So I am fine with what they did over the weekend, regardless of who it was against. Because if you're the Philadelphia Phillies and you're truly a playoff contending team, then you need to bury a team like the Nationals. And that's exactly what they did. And one of the stars of that show was JT Realmuto. And I want to start off with this tweet from our friend Jason Stark at The Athletic. JT Realmuto, over this past weekend, became the first catcher in the modern era with a home run and triple in back-to-back games. First catcher in the modern era. Last NL catcher to even have 2 games like that in the same season, quote-unquote, JT Realmuto in 2019. So I guess Jason Stark realized that we had some curiosity. We're just thinking about anybody else that might have done it as well. And he's the last catcher to do that, not named JT Realmuto, with 2 in the same season. Jason Kendall in 2000. So JT Realmuto, an elite company, as he has been for the last, month of the season plus. Finished up July pretty hot. We talked about that he hit well over 300, 336, and hit some home runs for you and really turned his season around, especially after he didn't play in Toronto. Whatever that was a little reset button it turned out to be for him, and he has been one of the best to watch in the game, especially just not even just from the plate, but behind the plate as well. So it's great to see that. Then Rhys Hoskins, who has been red hot for the Phillies, takes the ball off his wrist, his forearm, and we all get a little scared. Looks like everything's going to be all right. So that's nice. But all in all, whether it was Rhys Hoskins hitting home runs in 4 consecutive games, whether it was JT Realmuto dominating at the plate as well, whether it was Derek Hall hitting bombs for you, whether it was Nick Maton hitting bombs for you, everybody on this Phillies roster was scorching hot. Brandon Marsh gets you a couple of hits. I was actually at the game on Saturday, my first baseball game in forever, it felt like. And I go to the stadium, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, this Brandon Marsh guy, I want to see him hit. Boom. Smacks a base hit up the middle. Had a couple of those over the weekend. Great to see that from him as a guy that's not supposed to hit. Guy's just supposed to be a defensive upgrade. They got the shot after Brandon Marsh yesterday got a hit. They got the shot of hitting coach Kevin Long sitting there in the dugout being like, yeah, that's how you do it. They said that his swing needed some tweaks. They felt like they knew what he needed in order to improve and become a better offensive center fielder, because defensively speaking, it's already there for the guy. And Kevin Long's looking at him like, oh, yeah, there you go. So maybe those guys are already having conversations about what he needs to do, Brandon Marsh, to become a better hitter at the plate. But I was blown away by what the Phillies were able to do. Because I was waiting, like some of you that maybe you're not pessimistic, maybe you're more so the realist. You're waiting for that at least one game where they played down to their opponent. And it didn't happen. They kept pouring it on over the weekend. And for a team that is really trying to solidify a spot in the wild card and in the playoffs, because now it's not even just about the wild card anymore. Now you're talking about being the second wild card team. not the pity third party that wouldn't be in the playoffs had it not been for a little playoff expansion going into this season, but a team that is actually rolling into the playoffs in the 2 spot in the wild card. Not that pity number 3, but the 2 spot. And it feels like, and going down to the ballpark for the first time really helped drive this home for me. It really felt like that buzz was back. I mean, you watch the games on TV, and you certainly know that there's excitement. But when you actually go to the game, this is why I was at that game. It's such a brag whenever a game gets brought up, because you can tell the whole vibe and the atmosphere, and you kind of feel that whole emotion that's going on at Citizens Bank Park. So I walked into the stadium, and just from the moment I actually walked into the concourse, there was like this buzz, this excitement about the Phillies again. And it didn't matter that it was the Nationals. You were going there because you really felt like your team was going to win. It's no longer, to use this phrase again, the pity party that it was for the last 10 years. It was like, well, if we go, maybe they'll win. No, it was like you went there expecting them to win this baseball game. You went there expecting to see JT Realmuto hit a home run. You went there expecting to see Rhys Hoskins go yard. That's what you went to the ballpark to see. And yesterday, the day before, previous 2 games in this series, you got all of it. And being able to walk into that type of environment and have that experience again, and it's been the first time in a long time, not just to go to a game, but to have that experience of expecting your team to win, that is a great feeling to have when you walk into Citizens Bank Ballpark right there in South Philly. It was electric. And it didn't hurt that they pour on, 6 runs in the first inning? It was a 6:05 start time, quote unquote, after Wall of Fame inductions, but really started at like 6:45, it felt like. And then the game ended at like 10:30. It was a long night at the ballpark, but nonetheless, it was great. And to see them dominate 13-1, 11-5, 7-2, they get the win, the shortened game that we talked about on Friday with Noah Syndergaard on the hill. 5-4. That was a close one. It was the rain shortened game, and they did just enough to win that one. So that was great. But after that, they just rolled the Nationals, and that's what really gets the people going. That's what gets the butts into seats. So couldn't be more happy about that, and hopefully the Phillies keep that up. Now, after this 4-game series with the Marlins, they get the sweep. They've won 5 in a row now. They're now go face, or rather host the Marlins for a 3-game series. My only request there is to keep doing the same thing. Don't do the thing where you play down to your opponent and we're looking at the series going, yeah, they did it to the Nationals, and then the Marlins, the Phillies are going to Philly against the Marlins. No, you keep adding this, keep pouring on. That's what we need to see from this point on. But Hoskins obviously on fire in this series. Nick Castellanos came so close to a couple more home runs in this series. Had a big one obviously on Saturday night, on Friday night. But really through the rest of this series was just hot for the plate. He got a couple of long, deep fly balls to right field that he just wasn't able to put over the wall, unfortunately. But that one that he hit on Friday night was an absolute bomb of a baseball that he put over there at Harry the K's. So I just want to see this team continue to do what they have been doing over the last couple of games and really the last month of the season. And all credit, really, to these guys turning it around and Rob Thompson providing an environment in that clubhouse that has allowed them to turn it around, whatever it is. I mean, you always talk about baseball managers being responsible for 7 to 10 wins or losses a year. You can put it on the manager. I say to hell with that. If you're talking about an overall clubhouse mentality and chemistry and atmosphere, that goes into how the guys play every single day. That goes into every single at bat, every single pitch, because it changes the mindset of these players. It puts them in a different mind space, different headspace. And Rob Thompson, whatever it is, he's got that magic. And these guys are playing great because of it. Also, I got to say this. Kyle Schwarber, 34 home runs on the season. He knows he's got a runner on first base, nobody out. And last night lays down a bunt to put a runner in scoring position, 2 on, no out. Masher of home runs, sees they're playing the shift on him, and punches the ball down the left field, down the third baseline, I should say, to get a single and put a runner in scoring position. You love to see it, folks. You love to see it. Phillies keep that going. By the way, Nola last night got you 6 innings, or excuse me, yesterday afternoon, I should say, got you 6 innings, 1 run, 5 hits, 5 strikeouts in the game. Did issue 2 walks. Now, as much as I'm excited and happy that the Phillies are doing what they did, and have been doing what they've been doing for quite a while now. There is a negative story that is surrounding the Phillies, and it's I consider unfortunate. I'm not a Pete Rose fan. I was a big proponent of him making it into the Hall of Fame in my younger year. He's a hit leader. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Put him in the Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you what Pete Rose really lost me. Now, I'm going to go chronologically. So for the people that are thinking this is the worst thing I'm going to say about Pete Rose, know that I'm going to go to a statutory rape, okay? I'm going to mention that. So I'm going chronologically here. Pete Rose, in my lifetime, as a child, when I was a kid, Pete Rose was this amazing ball player. And no one can take that part away from him. That helped the Phillies win their first ever World Series, a hero in Philadelphia. And then I'm 7 years old when the whole gambling controversy starts up. And then he gets banned from baseball. And that's kind of how I knew Pete Rose for the vast majority of my younger years. This guy that came to the Phillies and helped them win a World Series, and he had a gambling problem, and he got banned because he was betting on baseball. Allegedly, he always said he didn't, but baseball did a whole Dowd report and said that he did. We had a shadow of a doubt bet on baseball. And Pete Rose, no, I never bet on baseball. I didn't bet on baseball. I bet on these other things, but I didn't bet on baseball. And I grew up with the guy said he didn't bet on baseball. Let's go here. Come on. So I grew up in his camp that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And then in 2004, he writes a book that says, yep, I did it. I bet on baseball, but I never bet against the Reds. Now, Dowd, the guy that did that report that ended up getting him, John Dowd, that ended up getting him out of baseball, right, banning him from baseball, he says that Pete Rose they had no evidence. They had no evidence that he ever bet against the Reds. But he's like, he probably did. that was his takeaway from the whole investigation. Well, I can't prove that he did, but the guy probably did. And looking back on it, when you talk about a moral compass for somebody, yeah, I wouldn't put it past him either. Never bet against the Reds. Okay. All right. While he was managing or playing. Okay. Let's leave it at that. So in 2004, he comes out and he says that he did do it. And I thought to myself, well, that's lousy. I've been supporting this guy this whole time, and it turns out he should have just admitted this back in the day that he bet on baseball. And you know what? He would probably be in the Hall of Fame after the fact. All right, I did. If there was no investigation that was really needed, and he just came out yeah, I did it. All right. There have been guys in the past that have been not banned, but suspended from baseball. Leo DeRocha, for instance, is a guy that was playing craps with players apparently, and cost one guy a lot of money, and was also consorting with shady characters. And he ended up getting a 1-year suspension from baseball. And you know what happened after that? He came back, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. So baseball has had a little bit of a forgiveness streak. If you're like, yeah, that happened. Miss Guzzi, let's move on, right? And Pete Rose never did that. He waited 15 years after the fact. And when he waited 15 years after the fact and it finally came out, you know what he said? Oh, I'm kind of trying to sell a book too. So when you put it out there in your book that you're trying to push, and that's the only reason you're doing it, that's kind of lousy. So from that point on, I was like, you know what, whatever, Pete Rose. If he gets in, he gets in, but I wasn't going to really bang the drum for the guy, anymore at least, and have those arguments about, oh, well, people saying he broke the golden rule of baseball. Get him out of here. To hell with golden rules. It's not for Boy Scouts and choir boys. It's for ball players, And then after that, 2004, I was like, whatever. I don't really care. And I always respected him for the ball player that he was. And then in 2017, the Phillies, by the way, I didn't even mention the whole tax evasion thing, but, in 2017, the Phillies are going to bring him back to honor the 1980 championship team, and Pete Rose is going to be a part of it. Oh, and by the way, Pete Rose, even before in 2004, before that, in 1999, was the All-Century team, was on the baseball field for the first time since the ban. And I supported that because it was giving him credit for a great career, be the best ever, being one of the best ever, the all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball's history. He deserved to be there. Baseball said it was fine. I was cool with that. Thought that was great. 2004, he then finally admits to it. That's where I was at. So then 2017, the Phillies say they're going to bring him back. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. That's the same time. It's not the Hall of Fame, but it'll be the Phillies Wall of Fame, and they're going to honor him and the team. That'll be great. And just so happens around that time, and a lot of people forget this. Pete Rose was suing John Dowd for defamation when Dowd said on a radio interview that Pete Rose would have relationships or sexual relations with underage girls, 14, 15, 16 years old. 16 was the age of consent in Ohio where Pete Rose was playing at the time. One woman put her story on record, but not her name. She was referred to as Jane Doe. And that was one instance of alleged other instances of Pete Rose having sexual relations with an underage girl. The girl says at the time she was 14 or 15. Pete Rose says she was 16. And this was a relationship that they apparently had. Pete Rose was about 34 years old at the time of this relationship with a alleged 14 or 15 or 16-year-old girl. And this one relationship was supposedly one of at least two that were going on. Because when Dowd talks about it, he talks about girls, plural. This isn't the only instance. At that point in the whole Pete Rose situation, I said to hell with everything. The Phillies cancel it and now bring him back. Like 5 years later, that's still there. That didn't go anywhere. That's still hanging over the guy's head. So we got a guy that didn't want to come clean in Major League Baseball that would have saved his legacy in baseball and the ultimate place that you can save it, the Hall of Fame. Then he comes to his tax evasion. Then this story comes out in his book about how he did bet on baseball 15 years after that. So he's been lying about it the whole time to people like me who were supporting the guy. And then a story comes out with alleged statutory rape. Why are we looking at this guy anymore? And he gets a standing ovation when he comes back. I couldn't believe. I went, you know what? People at the game, and I'm trying to justify a standing ovation. I'm like, you know what? They're applauding baseball and what he did in baseball. And I'm still at the point where if I was at that game, I wouldn't have been standing up and applauding Pete Rose because I don't give a damn about Pete Rose anymore. You talk about the 1980 team, you talk about the big red machine in Cincinnati, and you talk about the guy on the field, incredible. Every single baseball player, you want to have that type of mentality to hustle and bust it down the line every time and get the most hits ever in the history of the game and on base percentage off the charts and all that stuff. Like, yes, that's what you want in a baseball player, that mindset and that talent. But everything else, like, I can't, like, put my hands together for that for a guy that's lied to me as a baseball fan, lied to you as a baseball fan, spit in the face of his own legacy. And then the whole time from the 70s, there's been this thing hanging over his head about statutory rape we're talking about here. And what the hell are we doing? I have zero respect for Pete Rose. I understand the baseball career, great. But, like, I'm supposed to do favors for this guy now? I'm supposed to stand and applaud this guy now? Yeah, no thanks. Oh, and the whole time, this case is hanging over his head about relationships with underage girls. And you would think, oh, you know what? Pete Rose, if there's an opportunity for him to say sorry or explain his side of things, he'll take full advantage of that, right? No. He's approaching this scenario like he approached the gambling scenario. No remorse. He's more or less approaching it with a deal with it. That's what you think? Yeah, deal with it. You know, don't judge me. I'll do what I want to do. I'm Pete Rose. Like, there's no remorse. There's no, I'm sorry. There was an awkward one apparently after it went down yesterday. In case you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to that, Alex Coffey of the Inquirer was talking to Pete Rose because he was made available to the public, or made available for to the press. And she says, I asked Pete Rose what he would say to people who say his presence here sends a negative message to women. This, of course, alluding to the statutory rape case. His response, no, I'm not here to talk about that. Sorry about that. It was 55 years ago, babe. It was 55 years ago, babe. So for the record, he was there to celebrate something that was 42 years ago. All right? And he's not going to talk about something that happened 55 years ago. First off, it wasn't. The case was 5 years ago, and that's what the question is about. Because if that case doesn't come about, and that story doesn't come about in a case that Pete Rose brought up because of defamation, then we're not talking about it. We don't even know about it. But it came up. And instead of just saying, I know a lot of stuff came, like, instead of having some ounce of humility that might have made people go, you know what, maybe this was, maybe she was 16, maybe this was a long-term relationship that they had. No, he's just, to hell with you. I'm not talking about that. You're being made available to the media. Do you think everyone's just going to kiss you? Pete Rose would like to get 4,000 hits. That's pretty great. Like, no, you're going to get tough questions. I give Alex Coffey, I give her all the credit in the world for asking that question, because that question had to be asked. When you weren't invited here, when you were uninvited 5 years ago because of this reason, and now you're invited back, well, then I think the question is pretty relevant. So apparently after that went down, Alex Coffey says that Rose was made available after the ceremony as well from yesterday. And someone, maybe an agent, said he had something to say to me. Pete Rose had something to say to Alex Coffey, but it didn't seem like he knew he was expected to say anything. He asked if he'd offended me and said, will you forgive me if I sign 1,000 baseballs for you, before saying sorry. So apparently he did apologize, but it didn't really seem sincere, is what I gather from all that. I'm willing to go in this camp in terms of the whole babe thing. You can look at it and go, this is a guy in his 80s, different era. I don't know if he meant anything by it, but he should know, bottom line. First off, you never refer to a woman, like, I'll call my wife babe, but like in a professional setting, especially a subject to reporter setting, that person ain't babe. That's at worst a miss. Or that's it. You don't call a woman babe in a professional setting like that. You shouldn't do it at all, unless that's your pet name for your wife or whatever. That's it. I went and I got, oh, God. Won't answer the question and addresses the woman as babe. Can you show more ignorance in such a short time frame? No. But he did, because then he goes in the booth during the broadcast and starts doing X-rated material, essentially. Cursed twice. The first, I knew we were off to the races once Pete Rose I just saw him there, and I went, oh, dear God, what's happening? And then I saw, like, and they're rolling the alumni in there, and they were great. They were telling great stories. Like, I thought, oh, boy. I thought Steve Carlton was going to be the best show there. No. Next was Pete Rose. They bring in Pete Rose, and I knew we were going to really be off to the races when they're like, Tom McCarthy's like, well, you know John Kruk, of course. He was like, I know John Kruk when he had 2 balls. And it's like, and begin. So he references the 1 ball. John Kruk had cancer, for those that didn't know. And he references 1 testicle. And then he goes on to say the S word twice. And then he goes on to explain how a fastball to a certain teammate was at the level of his, I'll say, midsection. Now, to explain it, when I first heard it, I thought he said a cockeyed fastball. And I went, well, that doesn't make any sense. What does that mean? Oh, that's not what he said. And it was like, can we just get him out of here? And then they brought food to him. And I'm like, yes, just keep feeding him so he can't talk. Just eat more. And then he leaves. And it's like, why? Why would we put a microphone in front of this guy? And even if you did, you knew Pete Rose wasn't going to have any type of ounce of remorse, as he's never really shown throughout his entire post-baseball career, not even during his career. I'm done praising Pete Rose, and he should not be in the Hall of Fame. He shouldn't be a part of baseball. There's to me, no positive to it. But the Phillies, you know what they got yesterday? They got a standing ovation. A standing ovation for this guy. I can't do it. I don't like passing judgment. I really don't, on people in general. I don't like doing it. I'm looking at it yesterday, and all I can say is that wouldn't have been me. And from people I've talked to, people I've seen on social media, I know I'm not alone in that. And I know some people had his poster on their wall as kids, and they looked up to him. And they'll never forget what he did for that team in 1980 to bring the first World Series. And I get all that, and all that's fine. But like, there comes a point, as it came for me, to look at Pete Rose and go, yeah, hell of a baseball player, but I'm not doing any favors for this guy. I came to that conclusion in 2004 when he admitted to lying about baseball, gambling on baseball this whole time. And I certainly came to that point even harder in 2017 when the story came out about statutory rape. I'm out. And still the same guy with no remorse? Yeah, no thanks. And when it comes to that whole Hall of Fame thing, my argument has grown to this. When people say he's the all-time hits leader, he should be in the Hall of Fame, which was my own argument for a long time, just like many other people. He should be in the Hall of Fame. It's come down to this for me. The all-time hits leader should be in the Hall of Fame. You can't say that sentence and be wrong. But it's a shame that the all-time hits leader is Pete Rose, who deserves no accolades, no celebration ever again in baseball. We know what he did during his career. Congratulations, it was great. The guy that he has been since then doesn't deserve that. Even the baseball people, how do you support it when he's spit in your face? And he gambled on the game. He broke the one golden rule, and I was willing to forgive him for that. But he said he didn't do it. You know what? Benefit of the doubt. Didn't do it. And then 2014 totally admitted to it. Like, I was supporting you this whole time. And then you find out he's even just like to say the word creep. I hate getting in wars with adjectives about, no, he's a creep. No, he's despicable. No, he's whatever. The creepiest guy you can imagine in that booth. I have no need for it anymore. And I didn't need to see him. The only thing that I think will be a tribute to his baseball career is his stat sheet. And at this point, and he ripped another reporter later for asking him a question because he wasn't old enough to answer the question or ask the question. Pete Rose got into a little back and forth with the reporter because he's looking at him going, you're not old enough to ask me that question, basically. You weren't here 55 years ago. So what are you doing even born 55 years ago? Why asking that question? We got history books. We got the internet. We know the facts. We've read reports. That's why we're asking you the question. It'd be a lot easier. And maybe even some people might forgive you or believe you. I know I wouldn't after 15 years of lying about it. But I know some people might believe you about other things that have gone on in your personal life. If you would say, we had a relationship the whole time she was 16. I thought she was 16. Even in that, I know, I'm sorry that's the way this went down. That wasn't my intent. Anything to show remorse might gain some popularity with people again. But not for me. Out on Pete Rose. I've been out on Pete Rose for a long time. And I'll be fine if we don't really hear from Pete Rose anytime soon. But I'll say this. When he went into the booth, I think he got a lot of the I think people that made decisions to put him in the booth got their comeuppance when it went just as much of a train wreck as it could have gone. That's where I've been on Pete Rose. If you differ from me, if you still got a poster on your wall of him, if you only see him as the 1980s guy and you froze him in your mind with a mop top and catching that deflection off Bob Boone's glove, then you know what? You're a big baseball fan, and that's great because I admire that play as well and that career as well. But when it comes to rooting for a guy or championing a cause for him to get some kind of accolade, I'm out. Pete Rose doesn't deserve any favors from us. That's where I'm at. Moving on. The Eagles got a lot of people excited yesterday. By the way, Kevin Kincaid of Crossing Broadcast is going to be joining us coming up in a minute. We'll talk about all things Phillies. We'll talk about the Eagles as well. We got some Sixers conversation going in there. So we got a lot of things to get to. If you want to know how the Eagles training camp session went yesterday at Lincoln Financial Field, all you have to do is look at the players that experienced the love of Philadelphia for the first time. Let's take a look at this. A.J. Brown, Philly, are you serious? That was practice. 30,000 plus here at practice? Nah, I love it here already. Today was fun, only the beginning. Whoosh, fire emoji. How about this? Check out this one here. Looking at, who do we have? Is this Kazir White? It should be Kazir White. Things are happening. What is happening? No. Did I load the same tweet twice? Idiot! Miss Guzzi, ladies and gentlemen. Miss Guzzi. This will just take a second. I do want to make sure I show this one because this one's Zach Pascal. Philly is lit. Tonight the fans came through. Going to be a fun year. 100 from Zach Pascal right there. it seemed like everyone was having a blast down there. Again, 30,000 plus just to watch a practice is pretty incredible. And I'll say when you see the guys go through the tunnel and you see the guys take the field and you hear Nick Sirianni get a huge ovation when he takes the field, you see a whole crowd sing happy birthday to Jalen Hurts, 24 years old. Happy birthday, Jalen Hurts. You see A.J. Brown tweeting out happy birthday to his boy and all that stuff. Like, it gets you excited. And I was just like the same thing I was telling you about the atmosphere of Citizens Bank Park. To see that at Lincoln Financial Field already for a practice is also great. And seeing, crowd, people in the crowd doing interviews throughout the different news stations in the city was awesome. And that buzz was definitely there. People are very excited about this team. And I think the Eagles are without question the favorite to win the NFC East. And I've been saying that for a while. This is at least an 11-win team. They could win 12, 13. I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to do that this year. And there's a lot of hope there. It was still a young quarterback looking to take that big step forward. Another piece added to the offense with A.J. Brown. And what we haven't talked about enough is the offensive line. And Isaac Seumalo having a good camp coming back from injury. That's great to see. Transitioning over to right guard as this line's going to look a little bit different this season. But I am thrilled that so many Eagles fans went down there to watch this. I'm not at all surprised. I'm just thrilled that it happened and thrilled for the fans that they got that opportunity to watch this team. And yes, I miss the days of Lehigh and going up there whenever we wanted and watching those practices and sweating it out and all that. I miss those days. But when you can have these types of nights still, it's a great thing. And I'll also do it for a great cause when it comes to Eagles autism. A couple of big plays that were made yesterday. This is one of them. This comes courtesy of my man E-Rock, picked up by John Clark of NBC Sports Philadelphia. Here's a play that got a lot of people talking. A nice throw and double coverage completed to A.J. Brown down the sideline for a touchdown.
For the people on the podcast, just trust. This is a great throw to the near side from Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown. James Bradbury on the coverage.
Lovely. Just know it was lovely. If you haven't seen it, go check out our friend John Clark. He's got it going. E-Rock tweeted, God bless. I got to get E-Rock on the show to talk about the vibe. It was just great. It was just a great atmosphere. And E-Rock tweeted out like a whole series of plays. So that's all there. Another thing E-Rock did that I thought was hilarious. So the media has come under criticism for the stats on Jalen Hurts, which is fine. And we all know Elliott Short-Parks. And I don't have a problem that Elliott does that. I personally don't take anything out of it. It shows me that Elliott is really paying attention to practice, which you want all your beat writers to do. But Elliott's doing that, and it's great. But in response, and some people also have been hypercritical of Jalen Hurts, and even more so than just, and look, I understand he's the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. But like hypercritical is when you're like, oh, well overthrown by Jalen Hurts on that one. Okay. Practice. So E-Rock, I guess, took it upon himself to then tweet what the media was doing and like who was the first media member on the field, who had trouble seeing from the sidelines, who was an injury liability. I thought it was hilarious. But he did tweet out a whole bunch of plays that the Eagles were running yesterday that you could watch and listen to the excitement in the stands. So that was great. Nick Sirianni, though, was also one of the more excited guys going into practice when he was talking about his right tackle, Lane Johnson, who we all know went through some mental health struggles last year, missed some time, came back, and was really lighting things on fire as a right tackle. And looked no further than his head coach to offer praise for what Lane Johnson brings to the table each and every Sunday with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Lane, to me, is he's the best, one of the best tackles in the world. He's the best right tackle in the world. I mean, to be able to say that about guys on your roster, that's a cool thing to have, right? Lane, you are the best right tackle in the world. That's how my eyes see it. That's how people in our building see it. That's how our offense, the coaches see it. The defensive staff sees it the same way. Everyone recognizes what type of player he is. And to be able to have that with your tackle is just a huge advantage for an offense that, that Lane Johnson has it taken care of over on the right side. You don't have to help him out. You don't have to you don't have to give him extra help. He's one of the best tackles in the NFL. He's the best right tackle in my eyes in the NFL. And so that's a huge thing. And I just see him confident in himself and and playing at a very high level, with his confidence and his skill, and he should be confident in himself because he's a heck of a football player.
That's what you want to hear from your head coach when you talk about your player. That's what you want to hear each and every time. And when it comes to what he brings to the table every day, I can't really think of higher praise than that. And Lane Johnson put it out on social media after the fact, quoted the tweet from the Eagles that they put out there about Lane Johnson being the best right tackle in the world. And he's just like, thanks, coach. Like you want to know that your coach has your back like that, and Nick Sirianni certainly does. And how about him wearing the Kenny Gainwell T-shirt? It was Kenny Gainwell's turn to get the T-shirt treatment from Nick Sirianni. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are putting under the microscope with Jalen Hurts in this practice, or really throughout this training camp, is throwing over the middle. Something that Jalen Hurts didn't do a whole lot of in his first year as the Eagles' starting quarterback. A.J. Brown catches a lot of passes over the middle. That wasn't an example. That was not an example, what I showed you earlier, him down the sideline. But nonetheless, he's caught a lot of passes over the middle. So they're asking the question after the game, or excuse me, before practice yesterday, whether or not Jalen Hurts is focusing in on a guy like A.J. Brown a little bit more, who is catching footballs in the middle of the field, and whether or not that was intentional to help him improve from what he wasn't able to do last year. Here is what Nick Sirianni say about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts connecting over the middle.
Yeah, you try to do what your players do best, right? And so there's some things that AJ does well, of course, that are over the middle. There's things that AJ does well, on the outside and all sorts of, he's a great player. And so, and like I think somebody asked me this about motion. You don't ever want to be at the bottom part of the NFL on anything. So we're very cautious conscious of very conscious on what our numbers say, and you never want to be at the bottom of the NFL on anything. So it's been good. Again, I don't want to give any secrets away of anything, and I want the teams to have to watch our tape and figure out what we're doing. So, but we're just focused on getting our guys the ball, and whether it's the outside or the inside, just getting our playmakers the ball.
That's all you can ask for. It's the idea of forcing something in practice that you hope applies to a game. And that's why when we talk about practice and stats and overthrows and all that stuff, it's like right now your coaches are trying to put you in unsuccessful situations where you're not familiar with this one particular play, or you're trying to make sure that you're getting on the same page to receiver. You can throw as many times as you want to a guy when you're not wearing any pads in the offseason, but you're calling each other to get together and work out. You can do that all day long, but until you do it in a game and you get that game speed, or at least, do it in a practice and at least get that practice speed down before you get to game speed again. You're not putting positions in practice to have success. You're putting positions in practice to improve. And a lot of times you gotta be looking at that barrier in front of you that's holding you back from being successful, and keep pounding it and pounding it and pounding it before you can break through it and get to the other side of it. And now what you were trying to break through earlier is now nothing. It's a wet paper bag that you got to try to run through to get to that back shoulder throw, or get to that perfect crisp throw on a slant route down the middle of the field. You got to break through that barrier of being unsuccessful to get to success. You can't let anything hold you back. That's why you practice. That's why I don't look at practice numbers and go, oh, this guy sucks. It all matters, and I'm not a wait-and-see guy. You guys know that. But when you're really trying to evaluate how much a quarterback has improved from last season to this season, or whether or not he's gotten worse, which I doubt, I got to see it in the game. That's the only way we'll know. Coming up in a second, by the way, Eagles, ladies and gentlemen, it all starts Friday. It all starts Friday with the Eagles. We had the Hall of Fame game last week. That was the nice little appetizer. That was a nice little antipasto. And the Eagles start their preseason schedule on Friday. Nick Sirianni was asked about starters, about depth, and whether or not Jalen Hurts was going to see any time on Friday against the Jets. Again, only 3 preseason games. He said it's all being sorted out. Translate, we won't see Jalen Hurts. We're not going to see any of the starters, pretty much, in the preseason. So don't expect that, as I think most people don't expect it. But this Friday night, 7:30, they kick off at Lincoln Financial Field, their only home preseason game. 7:30 kickoff Friday night against the New York Jets. Let me tell you about my friend, before we get to Kevin Kincaid at Crossing Broad, let me tell you about my friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, the perfect price every day online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Ladies and gentlemen, If you're looking for that big jewelry purchase, if you're looking to get engaged, if you're looking for that special gift for that special someone in your life, look no further than the other corner of 8th and Walnut right there on Jewelers Row. IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven treats everyone with love and respect, especially with the perfect price. Now, what's the perfect price? Well, the perfect price lets you know that you're not going to get taken advantage of. This isn't where you got to go in, you got to haggle, negotiate. Oh, that guy next to me, that person next to me, they're getting a better discount because they can negotiate better. No. They're getting the perfect price too. That's why it's the perfect price. Go to Steven Singer, get the perfect price every single day. Oh, did I make it for the sale? There is no sale. Sales every day. Did I have a coupon? You have a coupon for what? Everyone gets a coupon. It's perfect price. I negotiated really well. Everybody negotiates really well. For dazzling diamonds. Ready for love diamond engagement rings. Perfect gifts. Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, the perfect price every day. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Let's unpack it all that was this past weekend with my friend Kevin Kincaid at Crossing Broad in the Crossing Broadcast right here. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, from crossingbroad.com, as well as the Crossing Broadcast, which you guys can catch Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 to 2. What do you guys just run forever? Kevin, how long you guys go?
Yeah, depending. If we have a good guest, we'll keep it going. If the show's not, if we're kind of ran out of steam, we'll cut it close. So, no hard outs for us,
But, yeah, exactly. This is the world's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Kevin Kincaid joins us from Crossing Broad and Crossing Broadcast as well. Kevin, let's start it off with the hottest team in town right now. And even though the Eagles just had an open practice, I know people want to talk about that. We'll get to that. Phillies are just absolutely on fire. At the time they let go of Joe Girardi, did you ever think that this type of run was going to be possible where they look like a playoff-bound team?
No, I did not believe that would be possible. We were waiting for the inevitable, you get your bump off the new manager and then you fall back to earth, and you kind of stumble to, you're inevitable, 2 games over 500, 2 games under 500 or whatever it feels like the Phillies have been for the last, X amount of years now. But it's exciting, man. I like this is it's funny because everybody's all into the Eagles and the training camp stats and can't get enough of the Jalen Hurts talk and whatever. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, this is actually like the best sports summer that Philadelphia has had in God, at least 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't got to tell you, I'm a Union guy, so I follow the soccer team all the time, and they're playing their best season ever. The Phillies are probably going to the playoffs for the first time. Now, I don't want to jinx it. Let me find some wood here. But I mean, like the Phillies are probably going to the playoffs. The Union are a title contender. I mean, it's amazing right now, the scene, So I just think it's funny because I look at like the Cardinals winning like 7 in a row. The Phillies are like 10 of 11. Ironically, it's the Brewers that they're going to be battling with here. San Diego not looking so great after their big signings, but yeah, it's wide open, man. I mean, people should be excited about this team. I mean, I'm old enough to remember. It feels like it was forever ago when the Phillies were like ruling the town, man. And you got more calls on sports radio about the Phillies than the Eagles, but it's a better vibe when the Phillies are good and when they're playing well,
Yeah, well, let's just go back to that for a second and talk about those like 10, 11 years ago, whatever it was. I remember the only time really in my adult fandom that the Phillies ever threatened the Eagles in terms of being an Eagles or Phillies town, and that conversation, even having that conversation acknowledges that the Eagles were losing a little bit of ground. And I always likened it to, it's pretty much whatever. It's pretty much the town is pretty much behind whatever team is pissing them off the least. Like that's kind of the order of which it goes. But I do remember the Eagles were kind of giving you this song and dance about like not wanting to go after number 1 targets and free agents, and it was still the Joe Banner era. And it was like they were ignoring fans. And I remember one time this picked up a little bit of steam. I just said, you know what, Phillies fans, wear your Phillies gear to an Eagles game. And I remember that like caught some people's attention, that it pissed them off a little bit. And it was like, that would have been the ultimate insult. It ended up not getting the legs I wanted it to. But no, that was like the only time really threatened. But the Phillies seemed to be at least that good or that exciting again.
That was real. That was very real. Like, we're not making that up. I remember, I'd go back and forth from the sports talk radio stations to the different websites and kind of like just gauge what was working, what people were talking about, what we were doing when I was at Channel 3 at the time, how we would order our 2 minutes or our 2.5 minutes of sports that they would give us every night, but the Phillies were playing high, man. And they were resonating much more than the Eagles were at that time. It was interesting because they could do no wrong, and the Eagles were kind of dwindling in the like the end of the Andy era at that point. I think you were coming off the dream team year.
Yeah.
The dream team year, I guess in 2011, right? When the Phillies were still in the playoffs before they started to decline. But yeah, man, it feels, I mean, football and baseball have kind of, moved a little further apart, I guess, in the last 10 years or whatever. But man, Philly's a baseball town. A baseball town. The Northeast is a baseball area, New York, Boston. I'm actually running. I have another thing with the company now where I'm kind of in charge of our New York website too, and the stuff that's working up there's like Yankees, Mets. Man, I mean, like that baseball Northeast quarter baseball towns. Man, I mean, it's always people talk about it being hyper local or whatever, and maybe that's true, but man, when the Phils are good, people are buying in and they're dialed in.
Sure. I mean, Baltimore has played well as of late, the Baltimore Orioles, but I know that town's been terrible with baseball for the last 10 years for the most part, more than that, far beyond that actually. Yeah. But if you give them a product, that is a baseball city. They will love and support the Orioles again. But as far as this baseball team goes, of course, it's alumni weekend. They put up a great showing and all this. I got to ask you about Pete Rose, and I'll put all the cards out on the table. My feeling, and I said earlier in the show, my feeling on this is, yes, the all-time hit king should be in the Hall of Fame. You're absolutely right. The guy with the most hits ever should be in the Hall of Fame. It's a shame that guy happens to be Pete Rose, who doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because he's a total creep, shouldn't have been applauded, and just was all skeezy as hell on the TV broadcast of the game. I just don't – I get the infatuation from a hustler standpoint, from a champion and a winner and all that. But I don't want to do favors for this guy anymore. And I don't think it was good to do something good for him this time around, just like it wouldn't have been good 5 years ago. Do something good for him. What do you think?
I think I agree with you mostly on a lot of that stuff. There's just so many ways to approach it and so many different little caveats to the story. Like, number one, I am a disciple in the church of more than one thing can be true. Perfectly true that he absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as a baseball player. I've never heard one person ever question his on-field credentials for being in the Hall of Fame. At the same time, he's like a slime ball. Just I felt very I don't know, just not at ease watching that television broadcast where he was sitting in there. The funny thing is, Mark, it's you take him out. If you take off the off-field transgressions and just put it off to the side, right? Just pretend that doesn't exist for example. Sure. Just talking to him about the shift and talking to him about baseball and just straight baseball topics. I still felt like I was dirty after listening. I don't know, man. He's just got this vibe to him where he just seems like kind of like a creepy old man or whatever. And I think you go beyond that and you're like, I get the part of it where it's he was part of that team. He's a big part of that team. And maybe if you can separate a little bit of that just for one day only, and at least people give him credit for, maybe you're one of those people who can give him credit for what he did on the field while still thinking he's an a-hole off the field, and maybe those ideas are not mutually exclusive. I don't know. People have to answer that for themselves, but in hindsight, man, they probably just should not have made him available to the media. Right. Or not put him on TV, or just do take mitigating steps to prevent that from turning into a sideshow, because regardless of does it matter or not, or are those topics important or not, the off-field stuff that he did is important, but regardless of whether it takes some of the shine off of him coming back, what about the other dudes who were there for alumni weekend? Should have been talking about them, focusing on the feel good vibes at the ballpark. And then most of the headlines you got out of it were Pete Rose versus Alex Coffey and all these sidebar stories that came out of it, where ultimately that's not the takeaway that anybody was really looking for from this weekend. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, I think that's a great point. I think more people would have been okay with the idea of Pete Rose walking on the field, tipping his cap, and then maybe even a Instagram post where the team films him saying how much he loves being back in Philly. Thanks, Phillies fan. And that's it. But the idea of media session and putting him in the booth, probably not the best way to go about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, he could have just said, look, I loved my time playing here. Appreciate the fans for coming out. Appreciated your support back then. Love these teammates, and it's good to be with them again. And that's it. That's all he really had to say, and he's gotten multiple chances to try to show that he's evolved as a human being and just a little bit more of a decent dude. You and I are not like prudes sitting up here who are like, oh my God, he said the S word on like the air. It's the worst thing. Like, that's not what we are. But it's like, man, just try to show for once you've changed a little bit, you've learned a little bit, and you're like a little bit of a decent human being. Like, you're 81 years old. It's 2022. Like, you can't call a female reporter babe anymore. Like, it's just some stuff just doesn't fly anymore. You know, it's like, you know, I don't think, I think it was funny because people were getting like talking about like, oh, it's a woke question. And, you know, this person has an agenda and all this stuff. The reason it was relevant, Mark, is because he was supposed to come back in 2017. And the whole reason he didn't is because of that specific incident with the 14-year-old girl. Right. So whether or not you agree with the way that the question was framed to him about that, the topic itself was relevant because that's why he was not here 5 years ago. So I didn't really understand people saying like, oh, this reporter has an agenda or trying to make herself the story or whatever. I didn't think that had anything to do with it. I thought it was relevant based on the fact that, hey, we were supposed to do this 5 years ago, but we didn't because of the very topic that we're talking about right now. So I think if we learned anything from this whole thing, it's just don't let Pete near a microphone or don't put him on TV, which is like, you know, hey, we had a great time and back in the day and he was an important part of that team. I appreciate the fans. I appreciate my teammates and like, you know, yank him off the, you know, give him the, like the, what's the stereotype where somebody's on stage and they send the big hook out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the old whatever, the shepherd's hook, whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the cane. Get the cane. Just hook him off the stage. That whole thing.
Yeah, I know.
But I will say this past weekend solidified exactly why I was done with Pete Rose completely 5 years ago when that story came out. It's because like he won't change. Like he didn't change. Like gambling, he didn't change until he was going to sell a book. All right, fine, he got me. I bet on it. You know, like. All right.
Yeah.
And so whatever. Like we can go on and on.
Many years later. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Many years later.
You know what's real funny? I don't mean to interrupt you quick.
No, go please.
Just point in before I forget it.
Sure.
A lot of people, like I was reading like responses to the different stories that people were writing about Pete Rose. I know you're never supposed to read the comments in the first place, but there was a lot of stuff like, well, yeah, you guys are like millennials or you're young or you weren't even alive to watch Pete Rose play. And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, okay. I mean, that's true, but I also didn't need to watch him play to just look at all of his stats and see that he was a 17-time All-Star and that he does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You've got YouTube highlights and all this stuff, but more than anything, it's like I read Anthony Sanfilippo write a story, an anti-Pete Rose story. I read Kevin Cooney saying that. Bob Ford wrote about it 5 years ago before he left the Inquirer. Okay. Those guys aren't millennials. They're not young. They're like in their 50s and their 60s. And these guys watched him play. You know, they're more qualified to talk about it and write about it than anybody. And their opinions were reflective of your opinion and my opinion. So it's not a generational thing. It's not some like toxic masculinity, you know, millennials and like, oh, it's different these days or whatever. Like there's a lot of like baseball writers in their 50s, in their 60s, pushing 70 who have the same feelings on Pete Rose that everybody else did. So I just found that to be kind of fascinating, you know, to try to draw this like generational line of demarcation where it's like you guys don't appreciate what he did or aren't qualified to talk about what he did. I mean, it ain't just us, you know, like there's other people like revered, you know, baseball writers and journalists who share the same opinion that we do. So I find that to be kind of like a nothing burger, that accusation, you know.
Oh, from Pete. Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree. And Pete said the same. Pete Rose said the same thing himself. And my feeling, because you've been young and you've come up in the business with people that are significantly older than you. My thought was when people are talking about age, they're just changing the subject. They don't want to answer your question because your question will then become valid. Instead, I'll just play the "I'm older than you and know more than you" card. Which sometimes is right. In this case, it's not at all. Let me ask you. Let me ask you this here. So the Phillies are playing like really good baseball and stuff, which is pretty awesome, as we talked about earlier. Gene Segura just came back in the lineup. Nick Maton, forgot he existed for a minute. He comes out, hits a bomb. And then Rhys Hoskins gets hot. You know, hopefully everything checks out fine with his other forearm, wrist, whatever. And then Bryce Harper will be coming back September-ish. Right now, if you have to say, granted, it's the Nationals. They have 4-game sweep over the Nationals. They got another, I love your term, nothing burger. They got 3 games coming up against the Marlins. Hopefully they keep the same thing going before they face the Mets. How high do you think, like, what's the expectation now? How has it changed, do you think? Let's say maybe the second week of September with Bryce Harper back in this lineup, how much better will this Phillies team be?
Well, I much better. I think that's why people were kind of, I thought some of the like responses to the trade deadline were a little like off base because people were saying, oh, you know, it didn't really make a big splash. Okay, well, first of all, they nobody really expected them to make a big splash. Were they really going to be in the market for like one of the top 3 starting pitchers who are out there? No, they don't really have the ammunition for that anyway. But like, you knew you were getting Bryce back. You knew you were getting Segura back. The guys that they added, Syndergaard, Robertson, et cetera, they'll contribute now. Okay, so they got rid of, you don't have to make a blockbuster move to improve your team. Like, they got rid of guys who were not contributing for guys who will contribute, So it's basically just they had a straight swap, move some prospects, and the Phillies made themselves a better team last Wednesday than they were last Tuesday, And then you look at the Segura and the Harper thing as like the cherry on top, Obviously, like, the team's only going to get better, The expectation, to me, I'm not like a middle of the season goalpost mover kind of guy. It's like, I look at it as what it is at the beginning of the year. Anybody would be happy for this team to make the playoffs after 10 years of not being there. So I'm going to be more than happy with them just getting there, right? It's not like when the Eagles started 3-0 in Doug's first year and it's like, oh, Super Bowl. It's like, no, it's like, okay, I still think they're probably like a 500-ish team here, but I wouldn't talk people out of being excited for him. No, for sure. But I mean, I just don't want people to go overboard at the same time,
No, I'm with you there. Switch gears real quick. I want to talk about the Sixers. Did it give you warm and fuzzies when you saw Kevin Durant champagne showering James Harden? How did it make you feel personally?
It's funny too, because KD's got the Philly connection now because he's a co-owner of the Union. So
that's right.
If you're not going to come down and play for the Sixers, at least like recruit a guy to come down here or something. I don't know. Help us. Come where you're kind of like adopted like town now. So help us out at one point. But yeah, man, it's just funny like seeing all that behind the scenes and like, the investigation stuff is just, man, I mean, I don't even know where you start with that. It's funny, man. It's like, if you look at the way that James Harden played last year, I mean, you can make the argument that $32 million is market value for what he.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
totally. But if you still got another 15 million just sitting there and you're like, nah, I'm still going to applaud you for saying no to 15 million when you could have just had that in your back pocket no matter what.
Yeah. And I don't, my thing with the NBA is it's like, if you're going to do this with the Sixers, okay, they did it with the Knicks, right? Okay. Do the Brunson investigation. That's fine. If you're going to investigate one team, you got to invest everybody, right? Because everybody does it, right? I mean, it's no secret here. I mean, I don't know what the solution. Maybe that suggests to me, Mark. It's like if you have so many problems with every team having to be investigated for this pre-contact or whatever it is, then maybe the rule needs to change. Or maybe you do some kind of like maybe what does the NFL have, like the legal tampering period?
Right.
Maybe you just adjust it so that it's not so much where you're trying to just change the course of everything, right? This is not like, what's the name of the guy? Was it Joe Johnson who signed for like $1 million a year for the Timberwolves or whatever? And that's they got docked like 4 first-round picks, and it kind of like
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of screwed up Kevin Garnett's whole like Timberwolves experience because they couldn't build a team around him. But this is much different than a guy taking like 3 $1 million deals in a row, right? Versus like Harden with an option on the back end of it and giving yourself some wiggle room. Like I don't know if you can, if you get hit with a tampering thing and you lose like a 2nd-round pick or something, so be it. If they find some like fugazi like circumvention of the salary cap thing here, then we're really going to have something to talk about. But I can't imagine the NBA goes there because it's like, again, like I said, you go there with one team, you got to go there with everybody.
Right. Absolutely. Now the Eagles, at the time we taped this, just wrapped up a outdoor practice at Lincoln Financial Field. The crowd got to see them for the first time, the new version of Jalen Hurts, we hope. What are you taking out of all the reports in training camp with Jalen Hurts and how he has been playing so far to this point?
Jack shit.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, can I say that? I sound like Pete Rose now.
I was just gonna, beat me to the line. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Pete, easy, but no. Okay, cool. So you and I are pretty much in the same boat there. Excellent.
But I would say this, man. It's funny because I think they're so I'm not going to begrudge anybody for sharing that stuff or highlighting that stuff. I mean, there's obviously a demand for that. It's like the Eagles news or information is in demand 24/7, and if there's demand, then there's got to be supply to meet it. Maybe the supply, maybe on some days the supply is really worthwhile, meaningful stuff, and maybe on other days it's not. But If that's what fans are looking for, and there's a portion of fans who want to follow along with the play-by-play tweets and, statistics and stuff like that, then who am I to say that that's the wrong thing? I don't want anybody to like lose. This is probably fighting a losing battle here, but I would like Eagles fans to at least remain somewhat pragmatic about like the prospects of the season. I think, it's funny, man. I look at it. I like to look at things more like from a macro perspective. And I think like to me, I'm more interested in the topic of not whether Jalen Hurts can be a passer or if he's strictly a runner, but if they have to go back to like the run first simplified offense, do Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen believe that you can win by doing that?
Right.
No, I mean, like, do you think that, and we know, right, that they like passing the ball, and the modern day NFL, is leaning towards that much more than running the ball. But if you came to a conclusion where it's like Jalen Hurts is just going to be a running guy, he's never going to be that great of a throwing guy, can he be some kind of like a Lamar Jackson, and can that get you deep into the playoffs?
Right.
To me, it's like a larger philosophical question of, if it's not about what you want to do, but can you make this work if it's not plan A, so that's what I think.
Yeah. My feeling on it is we'll know within the first really 3 weeks of the season, because I think it'll be enough of a sample size to let us know what the Eagles at least wanted to do in the second year of Jalen Hurts being their regular starter and a second season under Nick Sirianni's system and all that. And it'll show you how much better Jalen Hurts got. And if they're doing that same run first mentality like they were in the majority of the second half of last year and a little bit more of the season than that, then we'll know that they don't have that much confidence in Jalen Hurts to be not just the guy as in a franchise quarterback, but to be the guy that makes the offense go.
No, I know. And it's like, it's funny to me. Like if you hypothetically say like you have a season like you did last year where they come out and they're like so-so or whatever, and then they kind of switch it up and they start to run the ball a little bit more and they get back to Jalen Hurts doing what Jalen does well, and they have another 9-8 or like a 10-7 off of that. Even then, do they pull the plug on Hurts at the end of it because he's not the type of quarterback that they want? Even if he has like a decent year, even if he has another year similar to what he has, to me, I think the bigger question that people don't talk about that often is more of like is this stylistically what the Eagles want to do and what they value? Right. Like, is this the kind of football team they want to have? So that's what I'm curious to see. And maybe AJ Brown solves a lot of those questions. We for us, man, these are like hypothetical, they're rhetorical questions, right? For Howie and for Nick and for Shane Steichen, they're real questions that they got to answer, not just what works, but like, is this what we want to be? So that's kind of like the thing that I'm focused on more than anything.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Kevin Kincaid, Crossing Broad, you guys do a phenomenal job. Always enjoy following all the story, all the wide variety of stories that you guys cover over there, of course. Appreciate you coming on, brother. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Farzy Show, my friend.
It's always a pleasure, man. Thanks. We'll do it again sometime, right? Absolutely.
Kevin Kincaid joining us. My thanks once again to Kevin Kincaid. Always good catching up with him. Love the stuff they do over there. They cover everything, the whole gambit. Let me tell you right now about Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Fellas, you want to look good everywhere, right? Well, that's when Manscaped enters the chat with the Platinum Package 4.0. That includes a lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer with all skin-safe technology that helps reduce the risk of nicks. So you can manscape with confidence and comfort. Plus, ultra premium body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, crop preserver, anti-chafing, ball deodorant, crop reviver, ball spray toner, anti-chafing boxers, and the Shed travel bag to help you hold all the goods that you'll be using to take care of your goods. Manscaped is the leader in below-the-waist grooming, and now you can trust them with the whole shebang. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code Farzy. That's manscaped.com when you use promo code Farzy. How about Freestone Farm CBD? I'm sure you've tried a lot of different CBD brands. If you're looking to try CBD brands, FreestoneFarmCBD.com is the way to go. You'll be blown away by their amazing strain menu, like their insane tropical tasting Bayox that clocks into the chart-topping 24.1%, and Super CBD, which is half Hindu,
Kush,
and 21%. The genetics of these guys are off the charts. They also grow all their premium hemp flower in the Garden State with all organic inputs and IPM, so there's nothing synthetic from farm to jar. And after harvest, they carefully preserve all the plant compounds with a perfect 3-month cure. Just one look or smell will let you know it is CBD done right. So head on over to freestonefarmcbd.com. That's freestonefarmcbd.com. Enter promo code Farzy for 20% off at freestonefarmcbd.com. Promo code Farzy for 20% off at freestonefarmcbd.com. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing all your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs? That's phlsportsnation.com. Fellas, you want to give Blue Chew a try? If you haven't tried Blue Chew yet and you think you need to try Blue Chew, why don't you look up Blue Chew at bluechew.com. You'll set up an appointment with one of their medical providers, and they'll go over everything. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men combat all forms of ED. And again, Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so there's no embarrassing trips to the doctor or pharmacy, as Blue Chew ships right to your door in a discreet package. You sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days, and it's all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical provider will work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. If you don't like swallowing pills, no problem. Here, Blue Chew's tablets are chewable, so it's not just a clever name. Blue Chew's tablets are made right here in the good old US of A, and they prepare and ship directly to your house, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy and more discreet. Once again, special deal for our listeners and our viewers. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code Farzy. That's trying Blue Chew for free with promo code Farzy at checkout, and pay just $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code Farzy, all one word, to receive your first month free. Just pay $5 shipping. Let's get into the chat check. See how you guys had a wonderful weekend. Oh, hello, bots. The bots are here. Bots. All right. Kevin, good morning. Dan, good morning. Leonard, what's up, Leonard? This team needs to continue to play well. Wild card is they're in the second wild card spot right now. Leonard, hello again. Daniel, what's going on? 12 games over 500 is pretty damn awesome. You're also absolutely right. April, so glad JT is finally getting it together. Hopefully he can keep it up through the rest of the year. JT's been on fire. Pretty shocked about the fact that they didn't get DD or let DD argue with Jim Salisbury. That might have got DD going. It might have got DD going. Second wild card team got to play the Braves as opposed to the third wild card team playing the Brewers or the Cardinals. It would be awesome to overtake the Braves. That would be pretty incredible. Although the Braves just had a rough series there with the Mets, as we all know. Phillies got the Mets after the Marlins. Phillies got the Mets 7 times this month. I think are the numbers we pointed out before. Paul, good morning, Paul. Wheels, you start the first game against the Fish tomorrow as well. Yes, Zach Wheeler starts tomorrow against the. I saw Wheels. I was thinking of Chris Wheeler, who was in the booth yesterday as well. By the way, I want to say this. Actually, no, I'm going to save it for the morning rush. I wanted to get this in the show, and I forgot about it. And it was something that really stuck out to me, other than Pete Rose in the booth yesterday. On a positive note, Paul, anyone see the video? Oh yeah, of Jordan Davis bull rushing Kelsey. Yeah. I saw that. Again, I will say it is practice. I just saw that he could do it. I don't know if Jason Kelsey was coaching him up as it was happening. But, yes, he was bull rushing the hell out of him. Dan, actually, Sealski has actually been pretty damn good with Mac now. Of course he has. Sealski's great. And McNeil's great. Love both those guys. Just needs to get into NFL shape and ready for 3 downs, and he'll be dominant. No, Paul, it's a great point. Still working himself into playing shape. Absolutely. Well, NFL shape, as you put it. I agree. Good point. John Cheeseborough, what's going on? Wait, why is Dan in the corner? Why are we putting Dan in the corner? Well, for praising Sealski? Let's see. Jim Grassmeter, what's up, Jim? Tyvita, good morning. Old men don't care. I avoid them at all costs, Tyvita. April, if Kruk is annoyed with you, you know you screwed up. April, that's a great point. Actually, PJ, we were just talking about that during the interview. It's like Kruk just couldn't take it. He was just like, good God. Is he still here? What Jim Grassmeter, when do they sign Thompson? Sooner rather than later, hopefully. Definitely Manscaped before taking picks for the best adult dating site. Yeah, Sean. Mullet sees all the bots. The bots dig Manscaped. They hear below the waist, and the bots are like, ah, they're talking about sex. Oh, no, just manscaping? Well, that's for sex. That's my...
For the people on the podcast, I just did a tremendous impression of the people that operate or program bots.
Ah! This is the face bots make. Ah! When they're sex. Anyway. I'm now seeing myself in the monitor do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what bots do. Oh, good Lord. Was that everybody? I think we got everybody. Tavita, Jim, Sean, Mullet, April, Love Chat. Love Chat, baby. Love Chat bots. All right. Old men really don't care. Which is why, like, the babe thing, I could totally see Pete Rose saying, but you gotta know, in like today's day and age, you don't say that. Like, what the hell, man? Good Lord. That's old school Dracula, Farzy? What, the bots look? Sex. Yes. All right. That's enough of that. My husband would like to know how much espresso you drank this morning, Mark. Do I have any? No, I had one. I've cut back. I go one espresso now. One espresso before the show. One espresso. But I can see why that would be confusing. What's up, Mr. April? Mr. Fuchs? Mr. Fuchs? Yeah, how about that? Congratulations to your daughter. What? By the way, the whole the belt, fantastic. Yeah. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody in the chat. You guys are great. Let's get to our morning rush brought to by Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorCars.com. Derailed. The show has derailed. All right. What was I going to get to you here? You like my legal pen? Here we go. Phillies 60-48, ladies and gentlemen. Playing themselves some great baseball. We're all having fun. They got the Marlins coming to town. They'll start that series tomorrow night. Phillies enjoying an off day today. A lot of alumni will be going golfing today, as they were talking about all day yesterday when they were in the broadcast booth. They've won 5 straight. They're half game up on the Padres, who have lost 4 in a row, by the way. And they're a game and a half up on the Brewers, who have lost 2 straight. Giants are 6.5 games back, so we can start forgetting about the Giants, I think. 3 games versus Miami. Zach Wheeler gets the start against the left-handed pitcher Braxton Garrett. He's got a 3.88 ERA on the season. So we'll see how that game shapes up for tomorrow night. Here's what I want to say. By the way, it's 7:05 start time tomorrow night. Here's what I want to say about the Phillies and what they had going on yesterday. Other than Pete Rose, other than Steve Carlson, every alumni that was asked about the fans in Philadelphia and how tough it can be to play in this city, every alumni, this was the thing that really stuck out to me. Every alumni talked about how the Phillies fans elevated their play. Like, they accepting nothing but their best effort. And he said that in turn, everyone said that in turn made them play better because you knew people were paying that close attention. And I thought that was awesome. I don't think you get that in every other city. You got to play well. You got to play hard in Philadelphia. Otherwise, the fans are going to let you know it. They'll give you a little leeway. You'll have some struggles. But if they show that you're not giving effort, like if you're a new player coming to Philadelphia and you don't bust down the first base line, fans are going to let you hear it right away. If you're a new player and you go 0 for 4 the first day, you won't hear boos. But you might hear boos if you don't hustle on your first day. And that's, I think, a fair trade that Philadelphia Phillies make with their players. Philadelphia Phillies fans make, and really Philadelphia fans in general make with their players. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Much appreciated. You guys are fantastic as per usual. Talk to you guys tomorrow. A little bit more Phillies conversation, a little bit more Eagles conversation as well. Jim Hyder produced the program, did a wonderful job. This is a Buzz Sports Entertainment production. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show, presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer. Steven's the other quarter of 8th and Walnut. See Mullet saying that pick of Maxie dunk in front of the camp kids is legendary. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Maxie ain't going anywhere, everybody. Have a great April. 1 espresso and a giant mug? No, it was a normal size. Thanks, everybody. You guys are great. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. See ya.